Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
Game Day Eve again. Brandon Brown back with Chris Breiler. We got a great show here. Some questions we're going to tackle, some topics that need to be tackled, preview of the Washington game, some picks for ourselves, and just a general solid approach to a Friday night ahead of this. I'm still going to call it a big game. I'm still going to call it ahead of a big game against Washington. Obviously, we talked about this on Wednesday with Mike Martin, the Husky expert, that, the game has lost a little bit of shine. I mean, a little bit. You would have liked, Washington to beat up on Montana first week as opposed to freaking lose to them. But it is what it is. I still think it's a big game. It's a night game. The May's out, all that. We'll get into all that stuff. But first, I'm going to let Chris take the floor because Chris put an article up that now was like, what happened here? This Chris Webber, Michigan Ward Manual thing is bizarre. I mean, to say the least at this point. And it looked like, on Wednesday we were all excited. We're talking about the Fab Five and, man, what kind of stuff would they have done in the NAL and how dope were they? And Chris Webber's coming back. It's going to be a reunion. It's going to be amazing. And pump the brakes,
record
man.
Scratch.
What's going on, dude? What the hell happened here?
I don't know, man. That was a weird sequence of events, and I even put it in the article. If you listen to what Chris Webber had to say, he was pretty specific. He remembered specific things from the conversation, and one of the quotes that stuck out to me was that Ward wanted to apologize, and this is Chris saying this. Ward wanted to apologize to the 18-year-old Chris Webber for not protecting him enough and not doing enough to sort of look out for him, and for Ward to come out and basically squash that 24 hours later. That's I put it in the article. It's just awkward. He didn't even. Ward said something to the effect of I'm happy for Chris and I wish him the best, but he was clear, I did not issue an apology. I did not ask Chris for an apology, but I don't know. I think if Chris wasn't entirely accurate on what he said, I could understand why Ward might want to correct it for the record, but Ward's response just left there were so many questions. It was okay, so nothing happened. I don't understand how this conversation, how two people can look at the same conversation so differently.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm finding myself asking a bunch of questions on both sides of this. Did Chris Webber just make this up? Did he just fabricate a story?
But wouldn't he know it would be? He was talking to the media.
Obviously,
that's what I'm saying. It would have been published. Right?
That's what I'm saying. Did he just make this up? Like you said, the quotes were specific. It wasn't like he just said in passing, Ward apologized, man. We had a good talk. It was great. Everything's fine. He had specific lines in there. Like you said, the 18-year-old Chris Webber, or I should have done more to protect you. Those are very specific details that, if Chris Webber's making it up, that's just weird as hell. Why? Why are you saying that? Knowing, like you said, that it's public and on the record, and someone's, in this case, Ward Manuel is going to say, dude, I didn't say that. Why did you say that? Or B, if he did say that, then why is Ward denying it? It's those are good things to say, seemingly. Like I said, there is a faction.
Somebody's lying. I think
exactly.
That's just what it comes down to.
Exactly.
Somebody's lying.
There is a faction of people that aren't fond of Chris Webber, and maybe Ward felt some squeeze on that. I don't know. It's just really strange. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it looked like things were trending in a good direction, and everybody was going to be kind of happy. Kumbaya. Maybe Chris Webber's back. The Fab Five, cool. And now it's it seems further away because it's just strange. And how are you going to bring him back when there's kind of this weirdness around what apparently, happened or didn't happen? I don't know. Very bizarre.
I feel like Ward's response or Ward's statement, I think it was to the Detroit News, he had issued the statement, but it just left so much, so many questions than it answered, especially given what Webber said. And I mentioned this in the article that I think given all that's transpired between the University of Michigan and Chris Webber, that if the Michigan athletic director, Ward Manuel, were to issue an apology and a conversation like that were to take place, to me, that's something that's so monumental that you don't misremember what was said. You know what I mean? Like that's a moment between Chris Webber and the Michigan AD saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. This was a mistake. We got to make it right." And if that didn't take place, I don't know how you confuse it for that. And so Chris Webber needs to answer some questions. I don't know when the next time he's going to be in front of the media is. I think he's actually at that Hall of Fame induction tonight, if I believe, or if I remember correctly. But he's got to answer some questions, and Ward's got to answer some questions too. That was just a weird interaction over the last that 24-hour span.
Another thing that makes me just a little confused or kind of weird about it, not confused, but like makes me think like there's more going on here, is that what Chris Webber said on behalf of Ward Manuel was really nice, like very complimentary, an apology, being nice, being polite, being trying to repair something, like all positive things. So for Ward to come out and denounce that, it tells me it's one of two things. Either Ward is in that camp of people who doesn't really like Chris Webber, or he's being influenced by somebody who is in that camp. Because if you agree with what he's saying, or you generally feel the way Chris Webber said it happened, if he's making it up, then you just let it be. I mean, it wasn't bad stuff. It's not like, he's out there lying on you or saying something really negative or painting you with an ugly brush. It's like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing from Webber. It's a good thing from Ward. Good thing from Michigan. Cool. Let it be. I didn't really say it, but fine, whatever. Nobody's going to know. No one cares. It's good. It's good. We're cool. So for the fact that he has to come out and deny it means he either doesn't dig Webber, or he's being told by someone above him with a fatter wallet to say, like, dude, no, you can't go out and say that to him because that's not what we think or want.
Or even more improbable, Chris Webber just got in front of the media and completely lied, which
made it up.
Makes zero sense.
I mean, maybe he did that, but that part seems the least likely to me. Maybe he remembered it differently than it happened, or it wasn't as direct as he said. But again, for him to have he should write dramas, like he should be involved with like TV show scripts. Like, again, he had very specific quotes in there, and
it was literally like he was referring to his notes when he was talking. Ward said this and Ward said that, so I don't get it. So
pretty strange, dude. Pretty strange. All right. We'll put a pin in that for now. We'll see what comes next. I mean,
I'm still hopeful that the Fab Five is in Ann Arbor, this winter. I hope we see him in Chrysler. I know they're all down there for the Hall of Fame induction, so that's kind of cool that they're all together. But yeah, this really makes it sort of it looked like it was headed in that direction. Now it's a big question mark as to whether or not you'll see the Fab Five at Chrysler. And I'm jacked for it. I want it.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. I want the Jordan gear. I want the Fab Five merch. So make it happen.
So we'll see. We'll keep that on the back burner for now and kind of monitor. It's not like I said, it's not a huge deal. It's just strange how it kind of played out. Kind of took off a little bit today because, I mean, it seemed like Ward made a point to come out and be like, no, I didn't say all that. I did not say all that. So Ward Manuel currently.
Oh God! No, God, please, no.
Live look at Ward Manuel. All right, so let's get into our first segment. Big Ten, big game. Big Ten, big lame. Biggest game this weekend for me, I think. I mean, the Washington-Michigan game's pretty big, but it's Oregon-Ohio State, right? I mean, that's a big game. Oregon's got a lot of talent. They've got speed. They've got some guys that can.
It's at Columbus.
It's in Columbus, that can go toe-to-toe with Ohio State in terms of athleticism and speed, but I don't know. You just said it. I mean, in Columbus, we'll get to the spread a little bit later. That's part of our pick'em section, but I don't know. I still think Ohio State is probably the better team overall. They've recruited better than everybody in the country, not named Alabama, basically. Even though Oregon's really good and they've been pretty good and they've got some explosive players. Kayvon Thibodeau is one of the best pass rushers in the country. I think he's a little dinged up, though, if I'm not mistaken. I still think Ohio State is just, they're kind of on another level. We saw the second half against Minnesota, how good C.J. Stroud ended up looking. They still have those receivers that are as good as anybody in the entire country. It's a big game. highly ranked teams, two top 10 teams, I believe. I think Oregon's in the top 10 or they're close to it. But yeah, I don't know. I think Ohio State probably is feeling pretty good about where they're at with the Ducks coming to town.
I tend to agree with you, but I will say that I think, we thought, I guess the way I'm looking at Ohio State, Oregon is the way that I was looking at Michigan, Washington, is like, we won't really know what kind of team Michigan is until week 2 and they play a really solid Washington team. Well, now we don't know what kind of team Washington is. I'm pretty sure Oregon is still a solid team. And we saw, week 1 we saw, or it was on Thursday. I think it was, did they play week 1? It was Thursday leading up to week 1. Whatever the hell it was, whenever Ohio State played Minnesota, we saw that they looked pedestrian.
Yeah, last Thursday.
Half.
Yeah.
Right? They looked pedestrian in the first half, and then they turned it on in the second half. I don't know what to make of Ohio State quite yet, because I didn't walk away feeling that impressed from their game against Minnesota. I mean, Stroud made some great throws, and you could see that high potent offense is still there. But I don't know. I don't look at this like, usually when I think about Ohio State and somebody, even if it's a big game, somebody going into, Columbus, I'm always so confident in Ohio State. And this year I just don't feel that for some reason. I think that they're vulnerable this year. I still think they're really good. I think they're the best team in the Big Ten, but I think they're more vulnerable this year than they have been probably throughout Harbaugh's entire tenure.
Yeah, Oregon's coming to town with Anthony Brown at quarterback. He's a dual threat guy. He's a transfer from Boston College. Not a sniper with his arm, but he's a good athlete. He can move the ball. He can do some things, and they've got talent. They've got some speed around at the skill positions. Really good pass rusher, like I said, in Thibodeau. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting that you say that. Not quite as confident as Ohio State as you have been in the past, and it did look a little rusty and a little slow out of the gate against Minnesota, and then they turned it on. We'll see. I mean, they're definitely going to be up for their home opener, right? The first game was at Minnesota, so they haven't played at home yet, and they're bringing in a big opponent like Oregon.
Is that 4:30 or noon kickoff?
I can't remember the kickoff time. We can, maybe look at that while
I'll take a look. Yeah,
while we're sitting here talking about some other stuff. But I think that's the biggest game. I mean, the Michigan-Washington game had the potential to be really big, but then, man, Washington kind of screwed the pooch on that one. So,
you've also got Iowa State, and Iowa.
We'll get to that one too.
Yeah, and they beat Indiana. So again, this is going to be another one. Like, is Indiana that bad? Is Iowa that good? Like, I think we'll find out a lot about that week 1 game between Iowa and Indiana based on what happens this week.
And the lamest game in the Big Ten this week. Oh boy, I'm just wondering if you had to go to this one, cover it, or you got like, a buddy of yours was like an alum of the other school, and they're like, "Hey, dude, I got 2 tickets. Let's go." Northwestern
host Paradise.
Northwestern hosting Indiana State. Yeah. Northwestern blows. I mean, they got housed by Michigan State, who's better. I mean, they looked improved. There's no doubt about it. Kenneth Walker, the running back, looked, I mean, probably could make an argument he was the best looking running back in the Big Ten, maybe the country. I mean, the dude was a machine against Northwestern. But Northwestern coming in, we knew they were going to be pretty bad. They lost the most production of any team in the entire country. Literally, the entire FBS, they were at the bottom of who they were bringing back, and they punched above their weight last year, most would say. So losing all of that, it looked like it was going to be a rough year for them. They have Hunter Johnson at quarterback. He's the 5-star kid. He went to Clemson, didn't work out, and he just looks like he's never played the position before. I mean, he was bad against Michigan State. And now, I don't know anything about Indiana State. They are 1-0. They beat Eastern Illinois 26-21. I don't expect them to be all that great or have a lot of talent, but that game just screams like, I don't even know what it screams. It just screams. Because
what time do they kick off?
It's a noon game.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Northwestern.
Well, then it's at Northwestern, right? So it's actually at 11. So if you're going to Ryan Field, you got to be up a little bit early, right?
Let me double check because maybe I'm wrong on when that game is. I thought it was. I remember scrolling through the list and it was towards the top, so I just assumed it was a noon game, but maybe it's not. It's noon. Yeah, Indiana State at Northwestern noon. Yep, it is. I thought so.
So a nice little 11 a.m. start there. You got to be on the field. You're in the stands by like 10 o'clock at that point, right?
Yeah, sleepy. People are taking naps. up there. Those Northwestern students are reading books and getting ready for class. They don't. Oh man, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. I think about the people like Lauren Withrow. We met her in person. She used to do some work for the site, for the Wolverine Digest site, and she's now running the Northwestern site. I think about like having to cover that game, man. Like,
Brutal.
find something else to do. Find an intern.
We are very fortunate. I mean, think about what
yeah,
we're
man.
doing
I mean, like
Saturday.
even next week, Michigan's hosting Northern Illinois. That's going to be a bloodbath, but it's still Michigan football. Still the Big House. It's still spectacle. The fall in Ann Arbor. I mean, it's awesome. But
very fortunate.
Yeah, like Northwestern. That's one of the few away venues I've been to. It feels like a big high school. Like you're down. It's grass first of all, which is just weird nowadays. I don't hate it. But when you're down there, I was actually on the field for that game a couple years ago taking photos. So walking around in the grass, it was a little wet. My shoes got all messed up. I remember like, what are we doing here?
Were you looking at the field with your monocle? Like, what the hell? What kind of brand of football is this?
It was strange. It's a strange feel. And then you bring in an opponent like Indiana State, after getting beat by 17 by Michigan State. That could be a snooze fest right there.
Yeah. That
could be a snooze fest. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. But yeah, that's the lamest game on the slate to me this week, and we'll see how that ends up going. I'm trying to think. I think Northwestern was the very first Michigan game I ever went to. That's why I was. Do you remember the very first Michigan game you ever went to? Who it was?
I don't. I'd have to go back and look at photos and try to figure out which game it was and who I was with. But I mean, the earliest game I can remember is maybe like UMass was an opponent. I don't know.
Okay.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Northwestern. Pretty sure that was the first game I ever went to. Anyway, Northwestern's going to have. I like Pat Fitzgerald, but I think they're going to have a really rough year. Like, I don't know if they're going to beat anybody in the Big Ten, honestly. Like, if you put them up against like even Rutgers right now, I think I'd lean Rutgers. I do. So I think it's going to be
They look pretty damn bad against Michigan State. That's for sure. Or Michigan State's that good. Again, I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Michigan State playing Youngstown State this weekend, so not a big test for them either. But we'll see how it looks. All right, let's talk about a couple of these games. We just mentioned Oregon at Ohio State. Great game. I think it's going to be a really good game. Well, maybe not a really good competitive game, but fun to watch. I think there's going to be big plays. You're going to see future NFL guys out there. There's going to be talent. You're going to have C.J. Stroud figuring it out more. You're going to have Anthony Brown running around. But, dude, Ohio State is favored by 14.5 in that game. Place your bet, Chris Breiler. Place your freaking bet. Minus 14.5 for the Buckeyes against Oregon.
I'm going to take the under, right?
Like
I said before, I don't think Ohio State is the Ohio State we've come to expect. That doesn't mean not to say they're not good. Like they're good, they're elite. But, Oregon's a pretty good team too. It's an early season matchup. It's going to be a big game, and I think it's going to be close. I'll take the under.
That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points. I mean, the line was 13.5 against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they barely covered. They won by 14. So to think that the line's even bigger than that against Oregon, I know it's in Columbus. That changes the dynamics a little bit, but they
know things out there in Vegas.
I know, man. Those dudes they're not in the business of losing money. I get it. I get that. But that's an interesting line. I don't know. I think if I was mashing some money down on that one, I'd go with Oregon in the points. But I think I'm staying away from it because I think you're right. I mean, so much of what we're going to learn about all these teams in week 2 is going to really set the tone for the rest of the season. We've been talking about that with Washington for a while, and I think, we're really going to see that a little bit this weekend. We're going to see just how good Michigan is, just how good Washington is. I'm going to turn that music down a little bit. It's really loud for me. I don't know. We've talked about this before, too. For the viewers and the listeners out there, my headphones seem to be jacked up. Whenever Chris is talking, he's super loud. whenever the music's on, it's super loud, but then we hear it on playback, and I'm like, damn, I can't even hardly hear it. So I apologize if that was insane right there, our little like Ocean's 11 music going on here. But anyway, I could barely hear myself think. But I think if I was putting money down, I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to stay away from it, but I would go with Oregon in the points. And then the other one, before we get to the Michigan and the Washington game, we'll talk about that number as well and what pick we have there. But you mentioned it as well, Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa State is favored by 4.5. 4.5 point favorite Iowa State Cyclones over Iowa after they absolutely beat the brakes off of Indiana last week.
And
Where you put your money? No, it's in Ames.
It's in Ames. Okay, all right.
Where are you putting your money on that one, Chris? Iowa State minus 4.5. Putting them on the Hawkeyes or on the Cyclones?
You know what? Something special happens when these two guys get together. I'll take the Cyclones. I think
cover.
Yeah, to cover.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, there is a segment of the Michigan fan base that loves Matt Campbell, and if Matt Campbell is who everybody thinks he is, seems like a game that's winnable, right?
I'm one of them. I really think he's a great coach. I mean, it's so funny to me, man. It's so funny to me when I see all these people who are like, I screwed that up. So all these people that are like, okay, yes, there's a big group, there's a big chunk of people who likes Matt Campbell and says like, I wish he would be the coach after Harbaugh's gone, or get Harbaugh out of here and get Matt Campbell in here. And then people will say like, Matt Campbell's done this and Jim Harbaugh's done this, like to try to make a point. Like, dude, it's freaking Iowa State.
Yeah.
That's like comparing Vanderbilt to Auburn or Vanderbilt to Georgia. It's not on the same plane, dude. He has had one 4-star recruit the entire time he's been there.
Yeah.
Dude, he doesn't belong. His teams don't belong on the field with Oklahoma and Texas, and he beats them about a third of the time. Like, that's got to count for something. I know he's never beat Iowa. That's the one thing that Michigan fans always run to. Guess what? He shouldn't beat Iowa either with the players he has.
Yeah.
But he's been competitive and he wins games, and he's been he's been at the top of the Big 12. I know the Big 12 is not the Big 10. That doesn't matter. It's Iowa State. They blow. They're one of the worst football programs in the country historically when you look back before Matt Campbell. So you can miss me with that comparison stuff. I'm not saying he would come and be better than Jim Harbaugh. I wouldn't guarantee that. But I like what he's done at Iowa State, and I think he's done a hell of a lot more with less. Whereas Jim Harbaugh, I think, has done less with more. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with those two comparisons. But anyway, we'll see. I think I'm taking Iowa. I was really impressed. I say all that. I pump up Iowa State for 5 minutes to say I'd put my money on Iowa, but I was just so impressed with what Iowa did against Indiana because I thought Indiana was going to be really good this year. Michael Penix is back. Don't know if he's all the way healthy yet or confident with whatever he's dealing with his injury. But, I mean, they handled him, and that really surprised me. Not that they won, but it was very lopsided. And Iowa looks like the best team in the Big Ten right now, not named Ohio State.
There is a part of me coming off of last year, and I said this multiple times during the offseason when you and I would talk, that I just wasn't really willing to buy into Indiana at this point, that I thought it was a little bit of fool's gold, that, last season was great, but if you look at their track record under Tom Allen, it hasn't been very successful, and they haven't been good for a long time. So, based on what happened with Iowa, maybe Indiana, maybe last year was one of those that was like their year, and maybe things are trending back down. I don't know. But, again, I think week 2 we're going to find out a lot about a lot of teams.
Yeah, I mean that's Jim Harbaugh touched on that. He said week 2 week 2 is the hardest week to scout and prepare for a team. Like week 1 you'd think it would be because you haven't seen them yet. You don't know what you're going to get. But a lot of times week 1 is a feeling out. It's a vanilla game plan. It's a mediocre opponent. There's a lot of things that go into it. And then you get that week 2 game. In a lot of instances, you really got to step it up. You got to make a ton of adjustments. You got to change a bunch of stuff. And so it's really hard to know what you're going to see. But yeah, so I think I'd put with this Iowa State matchup specifically, I think I'd put my money on the Hawkeyes. I mean, maybe it's only a 3-point win for Iowa State. That would win the bet. Or, Iowa's certainly good enough to win that game. They have. Like I said, Matt Campbell hasn't beaten Iowa yet. So obviously that usually goes one way. So we'll see how that looks. It's a game I'm intrigued by in a big way. Obviously a Big Ten opponent, and then Matt Campbell. That intrigued there about I don't even know if he's a realistic target for Michigan as the head coach if that situation ever were to arise. I've heard that he would be interested from somebody I trust very much, but it's not a thing right now. So, but there's a seed. Everybody's got a little bit of a seed planted back there when it comes to
everybody
Matt
in
Campbell,
Michigan always kind of has a little bit of an eye on what's going on over at Iowa State.
And right now it's Matt Campbell. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. That's all I got for Place Your Bets. Week 2, it's a pretty weak slate across the country. There were some really big games week 1, a little bit of a step back during week 2. Washington, Michigan was supposed to be one of the bigger ones. We'll talk about that to close out the pod. But that's it. That's all we got on Place Your Bets this week. I hope we can get a lot more in the weeks to come where we can slap down some money and tell you guys how to get rich, bitch. That just came out of me.
Now there's the drop right there.
I did
right?
not.
That's the Place Your Bets drop.
I did not intend to do that, but sometimes Dave Chappelle just hits you and you got to run with it. All right.
It happens.
Little open-ended question, or not an open-ended question. Sorry, a little more of a specific type of question here. Another article that you put up, talking point before we get into our over/unders and then really focus on Washington to close this out. Jim Harbaugh nearing a big win. He's approaching a number that is pretty special. I mean, it's we've said this a lot, man. Jim Harbaugh has won a lot of games. He's averaging 8, 9, 10 wins a season, 69% win percentage. I feel like it should be a little higher, and I feel like he should have some bigger wins. But he's won the majority of his games by quite a bit, and that has allowed him to reach this total. Chris, what is Jim Harbaugh grinding for this weekend?
So if he gets the win this weekend, it'll be his 51st win, and that'll tie him with, I believe, Bump Elliott with 51 wins as well. The only difference is, Jim Harbaugh has gotten to that 51 win milestone in 2 fewer years. So, yeah, when it comes to winning games, he's got a great winning percentage. He's obviously racking up wins, but Michigan fans know the story. We don't have to go into Ohio State. We don't have to go into like top 10 wins. We know what the situation is, but overall he's winning ball games. And I mean, when you move into, depending on what happens this year, he's not going to move into the top 5 this year, but if he returns next year, you're talking about Jim Harbaugh, who now has a very realistic shot at finishing within the top 5 of Michigan coaches all time. I don't know that that's going to be impressive to anybody if that record doesn't include a Big Ten championship. And I don't even know if there's anything he can do with Ohio State at this point. I mean, you look at 0-5. Is he going to be around for another 5 or 6 years? Is he going to go 5-0 against the Buckeyes to try to turn this thing around? I just don't think there's enough time for him to ever finish out his career with Ohio State being viewed as like a positive thing with him and Michigan and the rivalry and all of that stuff. I just don't think there's enough time. So, yeah, but when it comes to wins, he's obviously moving up. He's putting his name along some of the best to ever do it. And you do have to give him credit for that. I know it's difficult because the big wins haven't been there. But he's still taking care of business to a certain extent, and you can't hate him for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, if you end up being inside that, top 5, top 4 all time at a place like Michigan, like that's, that says something. I mean, like you said, you could get into all the shortcomings, but there's some success there too. And yeah, I mean, that would be a nice place to etch your name and just, say you did what you did. I mean, if he finishes however long he stays at Michigan, he doesn't have a win over Ohio State though. That's going to be
that's
the
number
one
legacy.
Yeah, that is the legacy. And it is unfortunate on some levels, but there's no doubt that's what he was brought there to do. That's the kind of level he was at. That's the job. That's 100% right. That's the freaking job. That's it. Bump Elliott real quick. 9-game seasons back then, so that's a little different. But but his overall record was 51-42. So I think
he had a 49% winning percentage or something like that. He was in the 40s. So
it's going to be lower than Harbaugh's winning percentage, but. Again, a name that all Michigan fans have at least heard of. He hasn't coached since the 50s and 60s, so it's been a long time.
But he's getting up there with the Fritz Chryslers and some of those other guys. I mean, he's never going to catch Bo. He's never going to catch Lloyd. And I think a lot of people, that's what they expected when he got here, right? Is that he was going to land among those guys. He's not going to get there, but he will, he'll be in the top 5 by the time his career is all said and done here. So take that for whatever it's worth to you.
There you go. All right, Chris, you ready for some over-unders?
Let's
some
do
fun
it.
little prediction stuff. Here we go. Let's get some over-unders going here. You want to go first this time? I think I went first last time. Why don't
I'll
you get
go
us
first.
started?
So
Let me hear it.
So week 1 against Western Michigan, I think the point total was 61 points, 47-14, if I remember correctly. So I don't know that Michigan's going to score as many points this weekend, but I do think Washington scores more points than Western Michigan did. So I've got total points, the over-under set at 54.5. Over-under. 61 points total last weekend, 54.5 this weekend.
Is that the actual number? What is the actual number for the game?
I pulled it out of my head.
That's a pretty.
I would imagine it's close. To
Let's see how good you are compared to Vegas, Chris.
Let's see it. Maybe I've got another calling.
Well, so the Vegas over-under is 48.5. So you got a full touchdown, basically. That's a pretty low. I would go over that for sure. Yeah. I would go over 48.5. Your number is tougher, in my opinion.
54.5, yeah.
Your number is tougher than that Vegas number, in my opinion. I think. Oh, that's seriously like right where I was thinking. I'm thinking like, I'm not going to say my score just yet because we'll do that at the end. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under 54.5. Not by a lot. But yeah, just slightly. So I mean, you can kind of figure out where I'm at. If I said I would go over 48.5, but under 54.5, I mean, you've got the range there. But that's where I would be at.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under as well, only because I liked what I saw from the Michigan defense last week. Once they settled in and made some adjustments, they were able to shut down Western Michigan. Now, obviously, I thought it was going to be a different animal in Washington, but their offense looked terrible as well.
Horrible.
So even if their offense makes a significant improvement in week 2, I think the Michigan defense is just far superior. I think Washington's going to get a couple of sneaky scores in there, but for the most part, I think they keep them contained. I'll take the under on 54.5.
Against Western Michigan, Cade McNamara, starting quarterback for a Division I program in 2021, threw the ball a whopping 11 times. Now, I'm being a bit facetious there. They didn't have to throw the ball. They ran it at will. They scored 47 points. It's fine. I don't think it's going to go so easily against Washington. I know they looked bad against Montana. I know they're 0-1. I know they're coming in that way, but I think Michigan's going to have to roll out the playbook a little bit more against a talented NFL player, riddled roster. I mean, they've got NFL guys on that team. Yeah. I think they're going to have to do a little bit more. So Cade McNamara, over under 29.5 throws.
Ooh, I'll take the under, but not by much. I mean, I could see him at 28 or so. He is going to have to throw the ball, but from what we've heard about Washington, even though there's questions on the offensive side of the ball, they've got some corners out there. They got a secondary that can be a bit dangerous. And with McNamara not really being tested too much in week 1, I'm wondering how he's going to deal with facing a more a better secondary. I'm wondering how he's going to do with that. Is Michigan going to be down? Is going to have to throw the ball more? I'll take the under, but it's going to be close.
I'm with you. I'm also thinking the under, but just by a throw or two. Honestly, like if he finished the game with 28 or 29 attempts, that's about the wheelhouse I see him staying in. I don't think they're going to ask Cade. If they're true to their word, they're not going to ask Cade McNamara to go out and win the game and throw it all over the lot. So I think throwing it more than 30 times is unlikely, but you're right, man. I mean, if Michigan does find themselves down or they need to move the ball or they need some plays, I think they're going to have to do that, but I'm with you. I think he's going to be right in that region. Set 27, 28, 29 throws would put him just under that marker I came up with for 29.5 pass attempts.
Yeah. And I think this next question I have for you, this next over-under is going to dictate that a lot, because in week 1, we saw that Blake Corum, the running backs had a pretty good day, and Blake Corum in particular was at 211 all-purpose yards on the day. So in order to take some of that pressure off of Cade, those running backs are going to have to be just as good in week 2. What do you think for the over-under at Corum on all-purpose yards again? He was 211 week 1. I've got him at 200 week 2.
That's so fun. That's my question. That's exactly what I had next.
What'd you set it at?
I didn't include the return yards. To me, that doesn't really factor into how effective he's being or what the offense is doing. It's great. I mean, I love him returning kicks, and I think he's going to make some plays back there. But I think in the grand scheme of like the game overview, to include that as a part of his all-purpose yards, I just personally didn't have it. So I had just his rushing and receiving yards at 100.5. So to me, that means that I'm feeling a little lower on the number than you are. So for your number, I'd say under. I would say under. I think he's going to be, if you're including the, he had an 80-yard kickoff return. I mean, that's not like, you don't just take that away. That's one thing I hate when I hear people talking about stats. It's like, well, if you take away his 86-yarder, he only had 112 yards rushing. I'm like, well, did he have it or did he not? Like, it counts.
Right.
What is
and
it?
then Michigan starts on the 20-yard line. They're already in
it absolutely counts.
Yeah.
But I think the likelihood of him having an 80-yard kick return every week is low. So that's why I think that number will be lower than 200. I mean, I think he's in there for the same type of thing, 10, 12, 15 carries, a couple catches here and there. If he gets up to 200 yards on 18 touches, that's moving some, that's picking him up and putting him down. I think I'd go under. So we can kind of incorporate these two questions together if you want. So for me, I have him over 100.5 rushing and receiving yards total. I think, he gets 60, 70, 80 yards rushing, 20, 30, 40 receiving maybe on a screen pass, a bubble, whatever. I think he's going to be right around that, 100, 115-yard mark. Yeah. If he pops another kick return, then, shoot, man, people are going to stop kicking it to him. But we'll see in week 2.
I mean, I'm going to take the over on both. I'm going to take the over on both because, partially because Ronnie Bell's out, partially because I think the atmosphere is going to be electric. He's going to be returning kicks. I think that after his week 1 performance, and maybe this is something we can discuss a little bit later, but, after his week 1 performance, I expect him to be getting a lion's share of the carries. I could easily see him being over 200 all-purpose yards, over 100 rushing and receiving yards. So I'll hammer the over confidently there.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. I like it.
Dude looked unstoppable.
Yeah, he looked great. There's no doubt about it. He looked dynamic. We both talked about he would be our guy. I don't dislike Hassan Haskins. I dislike Blake Corum that much. Yep. And he looked different. He just looked different. And I know you've said it. Like, you like Hassan Haskins in the short yardage, the goal line, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Blake Corum's a rock, dude. He ain't going backwards. I mean, I know he's not as big, but he's a little ball of muscle, man. He's not falling backwards.
I say that because you got to get Haskins out there, right? He's got to be on the field somehow.
Find what he's good at, use him there.
I like him more in that situation because Blake Corum is so good when he's got open field in front of him. His vision and the jump cuts and the way he moves, that's his sweet spot. But if you need to just turn around, give the ball, let somebody put their shoulder down and smash in and try to get those lines, I like doing that with Haskins. You know what, though? I find myself in today's age of college football and the way that you can play sideline to sideline and you need these complete versatile backs who can do a little bit of everything. I like a guy like Corum who, even if he's supposed to punch it up in there and put his face in the fan, he can put his foot in the ground and jump 3 feet to the side in half a second and get the corner, and then he's walking in the end zone. We saw it last year.
Michigan State. Exactly. That was inside.
I think the run was designed to go up the middle, and he just bounced it out, and nobody could touch him. So you're right. So, I mean, it's hard keeping Blake Corum off the field.
I know. That's what I said. That's what I tweeted out last week, and it got a lot of attention. I said, I'm sorry. I like Hassan. You'd have to pay me some money to take that kid out. I'm leaving Blake Corum in the game unless he needs to come out, and that's just how I feel about him. That's how good I think he is. All right, so I'll go. I'll run out of questions sooner, I think, because that was kind of the same thing I had. JJ McCarthy, we saw him last week. He did some good. Do you have him next?
It's my next question.
All right. Well,
I swear to God, we do not talk about this before.
We don't. Right? We'll see where we went. There's a lot. There were several different things I thought here, but JJ McCarthy over under 8.5 snaps.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to take the over.
Do you want to know the number last week? Would that help at all? Do you need that information?
I think it was over 8. It had to have been over 8.
So last week he played 20.
Yeah, I'm taking.
Obviously, he was in. The game was out of hand. Cade wasn't coming back in. I don't know if it's that kind of situation against Washington, but do what you want with that number. JJ McCarthy, 8.5 snaps over under.
I'm going to take the over, and there is just a little part of me internally that I've been playing this scenario over in my mind where it's under the lights, Michigan's up against the ropes, the offense is struggling, and out trots the freshman, and the crowd goes crazy, and the McCarthy era is officially underway. Like, I could see something like that happening on a magical night in Ann Arbor under the lights. Like, what better way to do it? But yeah, I think he's going to be out there more. I think Harbaugh wants to get him on the field as much as he possibly can. I'm going to hammer over on the 8.5 snaps I think you had, and I'll just go right into my question because it's pretty similar. But I don't know how many passes he attempted last week. I don't have it in front of me, but I've got JJ McCarthy total attempts at 9.5.
Ooh.
Passing
Yeah, let me. I'm
I think
gonna
he threw it
think
7 times.
I'm gonna think, and I'm gonna look up the number here while I'm thinking. He threw the ball 6 times last week. That's
6
it.
times. Okay.
So to me, this answer is easy because I think it's under on my question. I don't think he plays 8.5 snaps or 9.
Okay.
You know, I think he plays. I don't know if he plays because I think the game. Washington is. I don't know. I don't know what Washington is. We're gonna find out. And I think it's gonna be a competitive game. And I think when you're in a competitive game, your starting quarterback plays and he plays the whole game. That's the typical script for a college football game. They've talked about the confidence they have in Cade. I just can't see. Man, dude, your movie montage you just directed for everybody is attractive, but I don't know if I can see a situation where they bench Cade.
I mean, if the ball isn't moving, that's the only way I can see it. Like if they're just dead in the water and they got to make something happen. And we've seen periods of this Michigan offense where things just disappear, So
I'm going to say under. I'm going to say under 8.5 snaps, and then therefore easily under the passing attempts. I think, if he comes in at the very end, it's like a mop-up thing. He's not going to be throwing it. If he does get on the field, I just can't. I think Michigan. We'll get to that, but I just can't see a scenario where Michigan is up by as much as they were against like a Western where they can get the backups in like that. I don't see that happening. So I'm going to say under 8.5 snaps, under what was your number? 9.5 throws?
9.5 attempts, yeah.
He didn't even throw it that many times against Western. I can't see it being more than that.
I'll take the over on the snaps. I'll take the under on the attempts because even when he was in there, you saw that there was a healthy appetite to get Donovan Edwards the ball. I don't know that that's going to be the same situation this week. But like I said, I don't think it would be if McCarthy comes in. I don't see it happening in mop-up duty. I see it happening out of necessity because they need a shot in the arm.
Look at the intrigue here that we are growing organically. Didn't even know that was going to be a thing.
Right from the soil.
Look, I'm not going to call you crazy. I'm not going to call you crazy for saying that. I think with Jim Harbaugh's track record of riding it out with quarterbacks, even when they've done some bad stuff, I just can't see it. But it feels not in week 2. I know it does. Different? It does feel a little different.
It seems like if there's a year to do it, it's this
year. Talked about it last on Wednesday. Talked about it on Wednesday. The words that they use to talk about the two quarterbacks, it's like, read between the lines, essentially. Cade, you're a placeholder. When it's time, it's time. See you later. JJ, here's the keys. I don't know if that's what they're really thinking, but that's what the language feels like and what it looked like. And no, look, like I said, I'm with you. I'm not going to call you crazy for thinking that's going to go like that. But for this week, I say under the snaps, under the throws. We'll see. It's going to be fun to keep an eye on that. All right. This is another tough one. I talked about sacks being a hard thing to predict last week. We talked about Aiden Hutchinson maybe getting a couple. He got 1. Turnovers are another thing. Michigan wants to get more takeaways this year, and it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. I think Brad Hawkins does not have an interception in his career, not one. Like that's crazy. He's played a ton of football. He's a good player. Plays safety. Teams throw it all over the place nowadays. He doesn't have a pick in his whole career. That's just crazy to think about. I'm not trying to bash Rudy's. It's just hard to believe that in today's day and age that's how that goes. But anyway, so specifically, not Brad Hawkins, Daxton Hill. He's in coverage. He's locked up. He's doing a lot of different things. He talked about it this week, disguising coverages, confusing the quarterback, making jumps on the ball. They're playing some more of these sit-down zones. I can see an anticipation play where Dax runs in front of something and he's off to the races. Daxton Hill, over under a half. So either basically he's getting one or he's not. Over under half a takeaway against Washington.
I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
Confidently take the under, just because I haven't seen it from him yet. Like there's flashes of it. He's around the ball. He's got the makeup to be that guy that everybody thinks he can be. But until we see him have that breakout game, I'm gonna go the under a lot when it comes to Daxton Hill.
Okay. I went out on a limb last week during warm-ups and said, you know what? AJ Henning's going to score a freaking touchdown today. He looks good. He looks fast. He looks like he's getting after it, and he did. A long one. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take the over. I think Daxton Hill gets his hands on a ball this week and turns into an offensive player for a moment. I don't know if he's taking it back. I don't know if he's going to make 4 people miss and show that dynamite speed that we haven't really seen other than, watching him. He was phenomenal last week. The tackles that he made, the space he covered, playing in the slot basically the whole game, running around with number 4 for Western Michigan. His role is different this year. I just think he's close. I think he's going to get close. They talked about wanting to do it more, wanting to put guys in a position to make interceptions and to get their hands on the ball. I'm going out on a limb, man. Daxton Hill is either going to pick a pass off or scoop up a fumble and turn into a runner for the first time in his career. I think he caught a pass, right, on a fake punt, I think, as a true freshman.
It was
that was about it.
Right, yeah.
So,
I mean, get him in a jet sweep. I just want to see what he can do.
Cool
like
too.
You can watch him out on the defensive side of the ball, and you can see how gifted he is athletically. But I want to see him with the ball in the hands, man. We hear about the athleticism and the speed, and you just haven't been able to see it. So it's been a bummer.
I will say he's going to get one. He's going to get a takeaway this week.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that happens. Are you out? Are you out of your?
I got one more.
over-unders?
I got one left.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So here we go.
I think we're back even because we had the same. We had
Back
the same
even.
JJ type of question. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So we obviously know the Michigan defense stepped up a little bit in the second half against Western Michigan. But the secondary, there were some questions about the secondary, and Michigan didn't get. I think they had one takeaway. Did they have a takeaway against Western? I don't even
That's
know if
actually what I was looking because I had this.
There was the strip sack.
Yeah, but they didn't recover it. I don't think they did.
Regardless.
I don't think they had a takeaway.
All right, we'll have to get this shit in our notes next time. I don't know what happened last week. I just don't think I saw a turnover, and I'm looking at this weekend, and I'm setting the over-under at takeaways by the Michigan defense at 2.5. Are you over or under 2.5 takeaways?
I'm going to take the under. The under. It's just like I just said. This is one of those things that's really hard to. It's really hard to predict. I mean, sacks. I always screwed it up. Never could get the right feel, get the right vibe. Interceptions and fumbles are just such chance occurrences that even when you've got like last week, Caleb Ellaby, I thought he was going to throw it all over the place, put it up there, let Michigan have a chance to take some of them away, and it didn't happen. So, yeah, I'm going to take. Let's see, Ellaby did not throw a pick, and neither did Cade. So unless there was a lost fumble, which I don't believe there was.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under. I just think that, no turnovers in either direction last week. So my last question is related to this, but in the other direction. I'll take the under. I think Michigan, I like their defense. But I got to see a little bit more. I got to see a little bit more against a better team.
I'm going to be bold here because I like Michigan's defensive front. I think Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, I think that those guys really get off and have a field day. And I think I think that defense is going to get some turnovers. I'll take the over. I think they walk out with maybe a couple fumble recoveries and an interception. I'll take the over at 2.5.
There you go. And my last question in the same wheelhouse, the other way, Michigan, I think, is going to have to throw it more. I think Washington has some playmakers on defense. I think Cade McNamara is going to have to push the envelope a little bit more than he did against Western Michigan. So my over-under is will Michigan's turnovers, so them giving the ball to Washington at 1.5. 1.5.
Can you see that? Michigan turnovers at 1.5?
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
The exact same thing. All right. Well, there you go.
I'm actually gonna take the over here, and for those reasons. When I was thinking about this question, I went back to the discussion we had. We had the guy from Washington, the Washington beat, kind of talking about that secondary, and I do think Cade's going to be in a position where he might have to force the issue a little bit more than he wants to. I think it's going to result in maybe he hasn't even thrown an interception in his career yet, right? His Michigan career. So I think he gets his first interception. I can see there being like a trouble with a snap exchange or whatever. I'll take the over. I think they're going to have 2 turnovers. Not looking forward to it, but I just think it's going to be more intense. Everything, the crowd's intense, the environment's intense, the game is intense. I think there's going to be a couple mistakes.
I'm with you. I actually think it's going to be about an even turnover battle, like 2-2. Like both teams playing a more talented team this week. Obviously, Washington really stubbed its toe coming out of the gate, but it's a different animal when you're coming to Ann Arbor. You're in the big house. You're playing against Michigan. If Jim Harbaugh's comments were correct, the Washington players have had this one circled. Like you just said, the intensity is going to be higher by 1,000% compared to what both teams saw in week 1. I mean, I know Michigan was at home and they were excited, but it was Western. This is a night game. This is Washington. This is big stage. This is
ABC.
It's a big deal, dude. And I think both teams are going to be seeing that and feeling that. And you're waiting around all day. 7, 8. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. I think 8 o'clock kickoff. Ready to get after it. I think both teams are, going to cough it up once or twice, but I'll say twice. I think Michigan might turn it over twice. I think Washington might turn it over twice. So,
there you go.
Yeah, I'll go with the over on Michigan's turnover set at 1.5. So there you have it. And we're out of questions because we doubled each other up like 2 times.
Doubled up.
Because we say the same thing every time.
Well, let me ask you this. So we have spent, we've spent the entire offseason talking about this game, and we came up with our predictions for what the season was going to be, what the win totals were going to be. You got them at 7, I had them at 9. We kept pointing to this game as the fork in the road, the pendulum that was either going to mean a 7-win season or a 9-win season. I know we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but I'm wondering, like, if Michigan goes out and gets the win against Washington, and it's a hard-fought game. It's not a blowout, but Michigan gets the victory. Do you feel as confident about moving that number north? I mean, I know you'll move them up to 8, right? Because they're getting a win that you didn't account for. But do you see them as more approaching maybe that 9-10 win mark, as improbable as it seemed, 3 or 4 weeks ago?
I've thought about this already because
with Indiana too, right? Indiana is another part of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I thought about that because I've always said, like, if Michigan can beat Washington, then I think I suddenly would feel good about them beating Indiana at home. They got, they lost by 17 to Indiana last year in Bloomington. That's a pretty one-sided. That's a dominant win in college football. You beat a team by 17 points. That's a dominant win. But playing them in Ann Arbor this year with the fans back, that's certainly going to change things. And then we saw Indiana lose like they lost to Iowa in week 1, and we saw Michigan do what they did, and now Washington. Yeah, like, I think it's more so far through 1 week, it's more about what the other teams have done than what Michigan has done. I mean, like, I was really impressed by a lot of what they did against Western, but that's what I expected. I expected them to look like that. My score was almost right on. I think I said 45-10, 42-10, somewhere in that range. So, like, I expected them to win by 30 plus, and that's what they did. With Indiana, I didn't watch any of that game, so I don't know exactly what they did wrong or what wasn't. I know Iowa had 2 pick sixes. Those aren't like fluke plays, but you can't count on 2 pick sixes every week. So even though that was pretty lopsided, I think Indiana's probably a little better than they looked right there. And same thing with Washington. Like, what the hell are they doing losing to Montana? What are they doing? So, man, dude, you know what? Even up until like Wednesday, and this is we'll kind of wrap up. We'll wrap up here as we transition right into this topic. Even as we were moving through the week, when we got to Wednesday, I was still gonna stick to my guns and what I told myself, and that I was gonna pick Michigan to come up just short against Washington until they showed me that enough things had changed from last year. Because after they lost to Michigan State, I picked them to win again, and they lost again. And I think I might have even done it one more time. I'm like, dude, I'm done. I'm done picking them just because I want them to win. And I feel like they should, because they're Michigan and because they recruit this way and because they have this and they have that. And I just said, I'm not going to do it anymore. I gotta break that thought process that Michigan just should win, because they didn't last year and it looked really bad at times. But dude, hearing Mike Martin on Wednesday pick Washington to lose by 13 really changed my mind, because I think, I watched some highlight cut-ups of the Washington game. I didn't really take much away from it. I don't really know what I was watching. The offense looked really pedestrian and vanilla. Like, I was watching the players from Montana. I'm like, I can't believe they're losing to this team. Like, what is happening? How is this even possible? So I just don't think they're that good. I don't think I don't know how a team with talent can lose that game. Yeah. Even if they laid an egg, you win it 14-10, or you win it 20-17 or something. They lost. They lost to freaking Montana. So I don't know. Did I even answer your question? I'm just talking out of my ass here.
Well,
I find myself, okay, I remember what you asked. I find myself shifting slightly. And I am going to pick Michigan to beat Washington now. So 2 days ago I wasn't.
Right. So now Brandon Brown is at an 8-win Michigan team. And with Indiana sort of up in the air, I mean, man, we're not even to week 2 yet, and we're already starting to look at this team as like 8, 9, 10 wins, when beforehand it was like the bottom could fall out, and I'm worried that like we're going to get through this weekend and we're going to be sitting here on Monday and we're going to I don't know what to think. Like, I don't know who Washington is. I still don't know who Michigan is. It's just been a really weird start to the year, given the way certain things have happened. Mm-hmm. And, but again, that's the beauty of college football, and it's fun and it's interesting. But for guys like us who, have to like analyze it and talk about it,
hard.
It sucks. It sucks. You really have no idea what to expect.
It's tough. Yeah. Well, let's go there. Let's talk predictions. Let's talk what we think we're going to see tomorrow night. I keep switching the score around too. I don't know if I've gone back and forth on a game in my head more than I have this one since I've been doing this as a job.
Yeah.
I am going to say Michigan 31-21. 10-point win, cover the 6.5-point spread that we mentioned earlier. I don't actually know if I said the number. We said we'd get to it. Michigan is favored by 6.5 over Washington in the Big House tomorrow night. I think that's a pretty reasonable number, because I when I think about how the game could play back and forth and what might happen, we talked about maybe a turnover here and there both ways. Yeah. See what Cade can do if he has to air it out 25 plus times. What's that going to look like? No Ronnie Bell. What are you going to get out of the running backs in week 2? Is that O-line going to hold up against bigger, more talented guys? I see it going back and forth a little bit. I see like a 7 to 10 point game. So I say 31-21. And I swear to God, if they make me look stupid this time, I'm not picking them again for the rest of the year. Mark it down. Mark it down.
I've got Michigan 34-17.
Okay.
So
that's pretty that's pretty dominant.
It is pretty dominant, but I think it looks worse than what it really is. I think Washington's 17, a bulk of that, 14 of that comes in the first half, and maybe we see a first half like we saw with Michigan and Western. I think it was 14-10 at the half, right? And then Michigan came out, took care of business, and then it looked not even, close. Was it 14-10 or 14-7? What was it? 10-7? What the hell was the halftime
Wasn't there
score?
A field goal right before the half?
Were we at the game? Did we see the game? Because I don't remember anything from it.
Wait, last week?
It was close. Last week. Western Michigan.
Oh, last week.
Going into the half. It was close going into the half, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Michigan
was.
settled for a field goal. Maybe it was 13-7 at the time. I don't know. I think Washington gets a bulk of their points in the first half. I think Michigan pulls away in the second half. It looks like a comfortable win, but I think things are going to be a little bit tight initially with the energy and the nerves, and just it's the first big game environment of the year. I think things are going to be tight early. Michigan pulls out second half 34-17, and we show up here on Monday and we shrug our shoulders because we don't know what that means.
Yeah, we'll see. And so obviously Washington was one of the games I had circled as a loss before the season started. Now I'm shifting from that, so that would put me at 8-4. Yeah. And I'm not coming off of that yet because we still have some time to see Indiana a couple more times and see what they're really all about and what was that game all about. And yeah, there's a couple good comments in here. Penix, that's right. He didn't have an offseason. Like people weren't sure if he was going to be ready to go for the opener, and he was. Yeah. So he wasn't up to full speed. He wasn't up to his natural, normal self. the 2 pick sixes, Iowa, they dominated the game. I don't know if you're going to see that from Indiana for the rest of the season, but that's what happened in week 1. So I don't know. Right now, I have it as a loss. If Indiana comes out and looks pedestrian and Michigan keeps dumping 40 burgers on people, I'm going to have to change my mind. And that's where we've been at all year. I said this week 2 game is going to be huge. And what happens? Now, on the flip side, if Michigan finds a way to lose this game tomorrow, then I'll shift the other way because I don't think Washington's very good. I don't know how they can be very good and you lose to a Montana in the opener. And so if Michigan loses that game, now suddenly I'm looking at suddenly a weird game at Michigan State where they look a lot better and they can run the ball and they've got some defensive line presence. That to me was a win all year long. I'm like, that's a win. Yep. I know last year was crazy, but it's still year 2 under Mel Tucker. It's still a rebuilding roster. They don't have all their pieces. That's a win for Michigan. But now, even right now, without tomorrow's result in the books yet, I still think that game's a lot more troubling than I thought it was before the season started.
And I thought Wisconsin on the road at Madison was a guaranteed loss, but then I see Penn State go in there and handle business week 1. I'm not so
that's
sure.
fun, isn't it? College football? Damn, it's fun.
No idea.
Man, it's fun. I can't wait. I can't wait to see tomorrow.
What a great job we have, man.
Yeah, dude. It's not bad.
Blessed.
Watch football, get paid.
# blessed.
Whatever it is. All right, I'm going to put on the smooth hip-hop to take us out in our last topic. How good do you think this Maze Out's going to be tomorrow? They have pumped the shit out of this thing, man. Everybody.
It better be impressive. I saw somebody saying, like, yeah, it's circulating social media, but the people on social media don't need it. It's like the other, so I know that the people that are plugged into social media, I trust that they're going to be in Maze, but man, the way this has been talked up over the last week, I think we are going to see an electric atmosphere at Michigan Stadium, especially given the fact that everybody is just coming off of a year off, the pandemic. I think it's going to be quite the environment. And I saw that comment, James Baxter.
Yeah, I see it, Baxter.
I would like it. I would be happy to be wrong. I'd be happy with 27-7 at that.
No, that's what the score was last week that we didn't know what the hell we were talking about. Yeah. You still don't. You still don't know what you're talking about. All right. I didn't think it was that lopsided either. I didn't remember it being that bad. But anyway, noobs.
Jesus. There was a lot going on.
We were trying to figure out life up there, dude. We were just in the zone. In the zone, man. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't. I had this written down, but we're already getting over an hour, and I have a story up on it if you want to check it out. Tons of detail, all the biggest names and all the visitors for this weekend. Yes, this is a massive recruiting visit weekend for Michigan, and I think, with Michigan being the favorite now and looking like they could get a big win, there's a couple big-time targets from Seattle coming to this game. A couple, multiple 5-star kids, including Damani Jackson and Walter Nolan. Michigan goes out and wins this thing tomorrow. It is going to be a party for those recruits in town, and it's going to be for the first time in a long time when Michigan loaded up the visitor list for the biggest game of the year. It could turn into a positive thing because unfortunately in recent years it's gone the other way. So check that out on WolverineDigest.com. We will be back on Saturday, either before or after the game, maybe both. Yeah, we'll see.
Who knows what the hell we're going to do.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Saturday.